my connection to Hollywood, my friendship with Hollywood, although of course I have a certain distance to it, and I just always want to make a point, not someone who would ever condemn it, would be so stupid. Hollywood has given us extraordinary films. I've just recently seen Elia Kazan's film Viva Zapata, which is one of the finest films, finest storytelling.
You said you love it because it's movies.
It's movies.
What
Yeah,
does
like
that mean?
Kung Fu is movies. Godard is not movies. It's cerebral stuff, and much of it is counterfeit money. But Kung Fu, Fred Astaire, porno films, that's movies.
Those three together?
Easily, yes. Movie has a great bandwidth, and it continues to give us new forms or unexplored things. Recently, I've been very fascinated by 360 degrees immersive virtual realities. There's a new form of, and I'm fairly certain it is not an extension of 3D cinema. It is something completely different and new. It's not an extension of video games. It is not anything that we can edit like we could edit a film, because you see really all around you. And when you have this mask on, when something is coming at you and you see a car flying by and you bend down, and of course you have to step on some sort of a mat that has sensors. It feels and calculates where you are moving and where you are looking. And you look around the corner and all of a sudden there's a bad guy coming there and waiting. And you have to look around the corner, even that is possible. But it's not cinema.
Are you excited by that possibility?
I don't know yet. I find it's a totally, utterly new instrument and nobody knows how to fill it. Nobody knows. Of course, very simple things, more contemplative things are all of a sudden interesting. You have a Mongolian Yurt. The camera, which looks in all directions, are there around you, and all of a sudden somebody laughs next to you, and you turn your head, and there's an old man who is telling a joke in Mongolian and has just laughed. So it's very, very strange. And I'm asking myself about how can it be filled? What are the parameters? What's so new about it?
Is that not what happens when anything is new?
No, normally you can see very early on, you could see what you could do with cinema. And you can tell when you look at the brothers Lumire, 1898 or so, they sent people around the world filming the world, a market in Vietnam, Indian yogis, some traveling shots, and everything that's in cinema possible was basically there, with the exception of 3D cinema, but it was all there already from its first moments. And here it's very, very odd, and it's, number one, you feel uncomfortable, and almost everyone, if you have it longer than 5-6 minutes, is mask on you.
Do you mean uncomfortable in the sense of being assaulted?
No, not really. It's something else. You are immersed in a space that is not yours, and you start to feel uncomfortable, and I don't know exactly why and what is the effect. Maybe because things were not contemplative enough. They are trying to give us the 3D action film effects, and they do not work so well. And
something comes to my mind when you mentioned Lumire.
Yes.
When you went back and looked at your very first film, The Lost Western, you saw in it what Lumire had already started.
No. First, The Lost Western is just a tiny high school joke with my friend. When we were 15 or 16, he was tall. He was our tallest man in class, and he looked like Gary Cooper. And he said, I'm like Gary Cooper, and I'm better as an actor than Gary. And I said, come on, let's pick up the camera and show it to us. So we did that. It has no consequence, this film. We should not talk about it. And of course,
let's not talk about it. Let's move right on. I'm sorry.
Let me say one more thing about immersive reality. There's a very interesting case. My wife is good friend with a young woman who lives in New York, and she works in selecting and arranging photos. And from her office, she has a corner office, and she sees 2/3 of the skyline of New York, a spectacular vista. That's one part of the reality of images. Second, she has 2 screens or 3 screens for the work she is doing, photos from all over the world. Next reality is 2 screens in a corner next to it, and both are live broadcasts. One of an eagle's nest, and the other one of some owls. Both of them are hatching young ones, both of them. So during day you see the eagles. When she works at night, she sees the owls. And it's heartbreaking because among the owls there's one feisty, bigger one that eats everything and finally tosses the weakling, the puny runt out of the nest. And that is all of a sudden a drama that makes her cry. And I understand that. And if, what I'm trying to say is, if virtual reality becomes completely and utterly contemplative, so that 24 hours some reality outside of yourself is going on, where all the spectacle doesn't have to be hammered into you, then it may be something really good for, let's say, people who are in hospital, or people who are in rehab, or people who are even on death row. That would be good cinema for them.
We will have a moment talking about death row in a while, but before we get to that, a little passage from this most extraordinary book that I encourage you. Werner has signed many copies for you. Werner Herzog, A Guide for the Perplexed, Conversations with Paul Cronin.
By the way,
Paul is here in the audience.
Is here tonight. Completed other surprise. Yes, he has been 10 years into it and has forced me to be precise and to go back into memories that were already buried somewhere. So if I faint here, he will step in. If you faint, he will step in as well. He can do.
And if we both faint, you'll have a trouble.
Yes.
But we'll try to. I want to just congratulate Paul on this most amazing achievement. I highly recommend you read this book. In it, he very early on relates this story, which I'd like you to expand a little bit on.